The electric aviation industry is literally taking off. And Jim, I think you can attest to that with the conference you guys put on this week. Why don't you tell us a few of the impressions from this year's conference?
Sure. So this is the first time that we've been back in person since 2020 at the same venue. And we had about 3 full days of content related to electric VTOL. Everything from some announcements like the Elroy Chaparral update to some product announcements from some of the suppliers. We had a lot of updates from our OEMs, as well as just some new and interesting topics to fill in those technical gaps. And we had a couple of sessions up from our government friends to update us on where they are with getting this industry, as you said, off the ground. We were very fortunate this year. We got 15 sponsors to come in and help us out and display their products, as well as about 20 exhibitors, including a cockpit simulator and a few models. One of our displays was a flying model of the Transcend VY400. It was fantastic. We've had a great week so far.
Yeah, and I've seen some of the announcements on Twitter and things like that. Elroy are interesting because it provides a new way to think about how to deliver goods and ship goods, right?
Yeah, Elroy's, it's a great example of what this industry can provide. It's not just a regular aircraft, right? We can design specifically for a function. There's plenty of room for different niche markets where you can design purpose-built aircraft to fill a need, such as the Elroy's mid-size cargo delivery, or the Joby's 4-passenger air taxi, or there's a number, and almost an infinite number of possibilities of what you could actually design.
Yeah, I think I saw Luft or someone like that has this combination drone/vehicle.
Exactly. We just published a press release at the end of last week where we have been cataloging the number of vehicles since 2016, and we finally crossed 600 vehicle designs in our catalog. So that just gives you an idea of just how prolific this industry has been. So there's about 150 to 200 companies that are working and designing aircraft, and that doesn't include all the support companies underneath that provide the avionics and the motors and the batteries and all the other systems to make these things viable vehicles. And it's not just building the big aircraft; they have to build models and get to a certain point and get flying, and then show the FAA that they're safe vehicles.
And I want to talk about the FAA and some of those things, but first, use cases. Have you seen any use cases that maybe you hadn't thought of until this week?
I wouldn't say this week, because I've been kind of cataloging a whole bunch of them. There's air taxi is the one that gets the most press, because that's seemingly where all the investment's going. But I can tell you that cargo has gotten a lot of interest as well more recently. But there's agricultural functions, there's inspection functions. There's just an enormous number of things. If there's anything you can do in the air without having to put somebody in harm's way, and it's not a drone, it needs to be a little bigger than a drone. These are ideal vehicle configurations to do that with.
I was watching one of the virtual sessions. All the sessions are online, and it was about using these kind of vehicles for emergency situations.
I foresee that being one of the first use cases that we can get out into the public's eye. Today we use helicopters for those functions, right? We use them for air medical and policing functions. If we can use the electric versions of those vehicles and get them out in the public's eye, and they can see what they can do and notice that they're not as loud and obstructive and intrusive as the regular helicopters, that should pave the way for other applications to be accepted by the public. Because that's really, you look at helicopters, nobody wants a helicopter landing in their backyard. But if these things can kind of quell some of those issues, I think we can find better acceptance. And that's where emergency services will come in. And that includes firefighting and those other kinds of things that people need and they accept. I think that's going to be one of those leading edge kind of applications.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, there's the public agency aspect of that I want to talk to for a moment. But first, you've also been very involved with CAMI in terms of helping them get the communities involved, right?
Right. We were one of the first organizations to get involved with CAMI. And they provide a very important function in that they are working with state, local, and municipalities to understand what they need to do, what they need to understand about the industry itself, and how they can bring it in and be supportive without being intrusive, right? So it's more than just infrastructure. It's getting regulations assigned and changed if they need to be able to support this industry. Because a lot of times there's places where there are very specific lines in the regulations that would prevent these vehicles from being used. So they're working with these different agencies from all over the country, and we're supporting them as best we can through our membership and through our support to their organization. It's a very important thing to have, and it's something that we couldn't do as an organization, so we're very happy to support them in doing it.
And from a agency perspective, it seems like one of the things you guys are doing a really good job, because it is a new technology, new concepts, new use cases, is working with the FAA, working with NASA and others to bring the whole thing together.
Yeah, so NASA has been really great. They kind of kicked this off a few years ago with some of their designs, and then in the meantime, the FAA, we've kind of brought them on board, and we've got their tech center. Been working with a lot of those folks to try to get them moving so that they are ready with having the right certification procedures in place, and that they are understanding what this industry is. Because if you go talk to a lot of the working class FAA folks, you say the word eVTOL, and they will look at you with glass eyes, because that's not where they work. They either work rotary wing or they work civil transport. This is very unique for them. So they're in order to get them educated, we're working with the tech center and the folks in DC to try to elevate, if you will, their knowledge of what this industry is, because it's going to affect their work, and we can't be having them in the way, if you will. If you look at what they did on the drone side, the UAS side, where a lot of that stuff was delayed because they weren't proactive in getting involved. We're trying to get them involved so that doesn't happen, so that we have to wait another 30 years to be able to fly in these things.
Well, it seems like you're looking at all the aspects too, whether it's safety or noise, and that's a big part, huh?
Safety is always number one. Noise is something that the FAA studies closely, because that's the number one complaint when it comes to aviation is noise. And also looking at clean aviation, right? So they have some initiatives they have to meet, and this starts to address some of that.
And it sounds like there's been some hydrogen announcements at this show. Is that true? Or?
We had a session on hydrogen. We have a hydrogen working group that has been around for about a year, and so we're working through what applications and different design criteria that would need to be addressed when you're trying to put hydrogen on an airplane. There's a lot of baggage that comes with hydrogen. Ill-founded, I might add, but it's still there. There are concerns for sure. Hydrogen is very, very volatile. It's very hard to make. It's not the simplest thing to control. So there's definitely a lot of issues that we need to address. But if you look at the future, it really does make sense if it's properly implemented. It would be a good fuel to use as a replacement for fossil fuel.
And the other thing that's really cool about this year's conference is you actually have a bunch of, aircraft that you'll be looking at tomorrow.
Yeah, so this was, for me, the highlight of our show, right? So I was able to work with some of our members and work with the Hiller Aviation Museum. We brought 6 vehicles to the museum. They already had 3 on display. So it's the perfect museum, because if you look at the history of vertical lift, Edward Hiller is one of the founding fathers of the whole industry, and he is so far ahead of his time. So a lot of the technology that we're utilizing for eVTOL, he did it back in the 50s and 60s. He just didn't have the great technology to make it work really well. So now that we're utilizing it as the perfect place to highlight these vehicles, including the Elroy Chaparral, which was just unveiled at the Hiller Museum yesterday. And we have an electric R-44 helicopter, as well as the Kitty Hawk Heaviside, and a couple of displays inside. So we'll have a few models, including a flying model. So it's going to be a great day, and there's already 3 of those vehicles on display at the museum. So if you can make it out there by 10 a.m. tomorrow, that'd be great, because it's an amazing display. I look forward to seeing them all.
Excellent. Well, Jim, thank you, and it's great to catch up with you.
Right. Thank you.